The opinions and views expressed by individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of this network, their group, or other organization they may be involved with.
I'm looking at myself, reflections of my mind. It's just the kind of day to leave myself behind. So gently swaying through the fairyland of love. If you'll just come with me, you'll see the beauty of Tuesday evening news. Tuesday evening
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Psychedelic Reporters for this Tuesday, the 9th, episode 210, here on NLK Network, the video news podcast focus on psychedelic medicine being reported in mainstream media. Shout out to the guys in Dead Ringer from Kirkland Lake, Ontario, for the awesome intro track, originally recorded by the Moody Blues, with some customized changes for our show. I am joined by my amazing joint host, Tara Simpson, along with the one and only Bufo Alvarius, who has chosen all of our stories for us. Hello, Tara.
Well, hello, hobbies, and hello, everyone. I'd like to introduce Bufo. He's our Sonoran Desert Toad, or Colorado Mud Toad. Did you know he emits DMT from his skin? And while that sounds like great fun, park rangers would like to remind everyone, please don't lick the toads.
I was trying to pat him. Yeah. Don't lick them. Don't lick them. Don't touch the nature outside. You know, it's weird. We even get that with gators down here. People see these things. They're like, let's go pet it. Let's go. Yeah. They're animals. You don't interact with their lifestyle.
No, not a good idea. Sustainable harvesting, keep yourself safe. Makes sense to me. Don't go gator wrestling. It's probably not safe.
No, not at all. So our first article comes here it is. Okay, it comes out of PhoenixNewsTimes.com. Room for improvement, the latest on Arizona's psilocybin trial. Sue Sisley of Scottsdale Research Institute talks studying mushrooms, the DEA, and even Joe Rogan. This is by Morgan Fisher.
Yeah, the Scottsdale Research Institute is in the midst of a clinical trial of whole psilocybin mushrooms, thought to be the first of its kind in the nation. Test subjects have ingested the psilocybin-infused chocolate hearts, and the first round of the study will wrap up in August. Principal investigator Dr. Sue Sisley told Phoenix News Time. The trial, which is partially funded with $5 million in taxpayer money allocated by the Arizona legislature and Governor Katie Hobbs in 2023, places Arizona at the forefront of psychedelic research amid federal change in attitude regarding psychedelic research and use. The study, which dosed test subjects earlier this year, split 24 people into 3 groups: 8 firefighters, 8 police officers, and 8 military veterans. and will test the therapeutic efficacy and safety of whole mushrooms for patients with post-traumatic stress disorder. Each participant took 30 milligrams of psilocybin in the form of about 4.5 grams of whole mushrooms, which are also grown at the lab's own facility under a Drug Enforcement Administration license. Each individual chocolate contained 10 milligrams of psilocybin. Friday morning, Cicely spoke with News Times by phone interview about the progress, the progress the study has made, the Trump administration's recent executive order on psychedelics, and even Joe Rogan. The interview has been edited for clarity and brevidity. What was the process of getting this study off the ground? The hurdles are massive. It's taken us 5 years to get the study underway. The clock started when we first applied for our psilocybin mushroom manufacturing license in 2021. We're the only entity in the country that I'm aware of growing federally legal mushrooms for the Food and Drug Administration clinical trials. The process of negotiating with the DEA and getting the license was a massive amount of work. Then when we finally got the license, we were starting to grow all different strains. We had to teach ourselves how to do this. We brought in experts to help us refine our techniques. I think at one point we had 14 different strains of psilocybin we were cultivating at the lab, just testing small amounts to see which ones grew the best, which one were the hardest, and most able to avoid contamination and grow to its full expression. We were trying to figure out which shrooms grew the best in our labs at the shortest incubation periods. We've interviewed a lot of people in the underground who were using these different strains, trying to figure out which ones worked best for them. We've interviewed a lot of military veterans and patients who were using it anyway. We settled on this strain, Jedi Mindfuck, which has been a good choice for us because they're easier to grow. And I've actually tried that strain. It's pretty decent, not going to lie.
Yeah, in what format do test subjects ingest the psilocybin? Oh, wait, the Jedi Mindfuck is that one that lady likes writing down as a fuck you to the FDA, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We tried all these different methods. Initially, we were just going to put them in capsules, but that was too many capsules for people to consume at one time. We moved to a hot tea, but the FDA didn't like their erratic stability after the water was added, so that didn't work. Ultimately, we settled on these chocolates. It took us almost 2 years to get the chocolates perfected to the point where they could be used in the human trial. The back and forth with the FDA was so intense because they demanded a level of standardization that's not easy to achieve with natural medicines like mushrooms. We're not a pharma company. We weren't going to try chemically treat them and do all these things to make them fit in their little proprietary model. We're trying to keep the mushrooms as it is, let it grow to its full expression, and try to standardize it from there. It took many, many rounds of growth cycles until finally we got to the point where the DEA was satisfied. I'm happy that we're able to fill the void for these scientists and hopefully get them to study in real mushrooms, which is what people are actually consuming every day. The real world is full of millions of people who are talking with either large macro dose or micro doses to try to heal themselves. They're not waiting for FDA approval. And rightly so, because a lot of these people don't have much time left on Earth. How many researchers do you supply with chocolates? We have 3 researchers who have signed supply agreements, one of which we've already shipped out. They're at the University of Arizona's College of Medicine. Dr. Francisco Marino got $1 million grant from the state, and the law in Arizona said you had to use natural mushrooms. So he needed our collaboration. We were happy to do it because he's a great guy and doing a really important study that's a follow-up to a trial and did over a decade ago that a psilocybin mushroom for treating severe OCD. That study was really promising, showing a real positive signal. Now he's going to get to the use the whole mushrooms. Wow.
Yeah, what is it like working with the current FDA? We've made very little progress under administrations. This administration, we're seeing improvements in how the FDA has been dealing with the process. I've spent 2 decades now hitting my head against the wall trying to deal with the government agencies that are just trying to consistently impede legitimate research. I'm happy to see the FDA is finally opening its mind to a discussion. We're not asking them to approve anything. We're asking them to stop blocking the science that is needed to explore natural materials. What did you make of President Donald Trump's April executive order to expedite research on psilocybin and other psychedelics for treating mental illness? Funding remains to be seen. They've announced that they're going to create federal state matching funds, which means Arizona could be eligible for 10 million because it issued 5 million for ibogaine and 5 million for psilocybin. That could work wonders here for Arizona. Was this just a very joyful announcement without any real world implications? That is the big question. I've seen a lot of executive orders over my lifetime from the president, and most look like political theater to me. There's a press release, all the media coverage, and then I don't see anything meaningful materialize after that. The funding hasn't materialized yet. There's no evidence the DEA is going to cooperate with the right to try law, which is a big part of the executive order. We helped write that. Interesting.
Yeah, so does the right to try law impact your current work? And in August, we will be finishing the study. And when you finish phase 1 and apply for phase 2, you are legitimately qualified under the right to try law. That was in the law or in the executive order. The DEA was going to create regulations to make the right to try law functional for psychedelics. But we got a letter from the DEA in February saying that they refused to allow us to participate in right to try. We can't do anything that the DEA doesn't approve. Now we're asking the DEA for a pilot program by letting us treat 20 patients with life-threatening illnesses under right to try with our federally legal mushroom. But so far, no response. It's been 5 weeks now, and we haven't got any communication back from them. We're going to reach back out to Joe Rogan, who was at the signing ceremony. He told folks that if there were any evidence that the administration wasn't moving forward on its promise to implement right to try for psychedelics, he would step in and let the president know that there's some foot dragging. The president hopefully would respond because he clearly wants Joe Rogan's audience in this camp. I think they probably genuinely like each other. Well, why is it important to get the right to try practically implemented for psychedelics? We've given them an opportunity for a real victory here, for the DEA to embrace this pilot project and show the public that they are a benevolent agency that cares that the public, if they don't allow sick people who are dying to have access to an investigational drug, that speaks volumes to the public that the DEA doesn't care about them. It's common sense that the sick people should have access to investigational drugs. It's their choice. It's a matter of personal liberty. If somebody who's sick wants to eat a mushroom, why is the government criminalizing that behavior? Once you've completed a phase 1 trial, that means you have an investigational drug that has met all pharmaceutical criteria of safety. Effectiveness, we don't know because they've just completed phase 1 and only this typically safety data. We're measuring safety and efficacy at the same trial. So that's the big deal. That's what you're going to see at the end of our trial. Huh.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, Dr. Sue Sisley also did the Jamaica study with pregnancy and cannabis. So she was involved in that as well.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, Arizona's coming up with a lot of cool shit. I wouldn't have thought it, you know, like we're really embracing natural medicines.
Absolutely. That's pretty cool to see things moving ahead anyways.
Our next article comes in marijuanamoment.net. And this again is about Louisiana lawmakers passed bill to create psychedelic therapy pilot program funded by the opioid settlement dollars. And now it's sending it to the governor. Now the governor already vetoed one bill already. So he's on a veto streak, or it's his first one and he's proven his right to say no. So this is written by Tom Engel.
Yeah, so Louisiana lawmakers have sent the governor a bill to create psychedelic assisted therapy pilot programs using opioid settlement dollars to fund clinical trials aimed at developing alternative treatments such as psilocybin, ibogaine, and MDMA. The Senate signed off on the final version of the proposal from Senator Patrick McMath, Republican, on Friday in a unanimous 35-0 vote, and the House of Representatives tally to approve. It was 97-0 on Sunday. The House last month added MDMA to the scope of the original Senate legislation and also made technical changes to the text. The Senate objected, however, to what supporters said was an error in the revised version, and members requested that the measure be sent to a bicameral conference committee where that was resolved before the correct bill came back to the floor of both chambers for final votes. The psychedelic legislation now heads to the desk of Governor Jeff Landry, Republican, for consideration. Representative Neil Reiser, Republican, who presented the legislation to the House, said previously that the amendment adding MDMA put us in a positive correlation with psychedelic executive order recently signed by President Donald Trump, so that we can look at all different alternatives, including those that are beyond the ibogaine that were listed in the executive order. He discussed psychedelics as a much-needed alternative treatment option for military veterans and others dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, saying for every soldier that is killed in action, 5 commit suicide when they come home. So clearly the best methodology of treatment that we've been using at the Department of Veterans Affairs or elsewhere really does not work, he said. There's also the firemen and the police officers that suffer from this post-traumatic stress. Reiser told colleagues that you're going to look back on a lot of pieces of legislation that you voted on or voted for. This will be a piece of legislation that you will truly be proud to know that you changed people's lives, he said. Wow.
Yeah, it's the legislation is enacted into law. If it is, the psychedelics program would be overseen by the Louisiana Department of Health, which would be responsible for facilitating clinical trials involving substances that hold therapeutic potential. The bill says that the eligible participants would include people with opioid disorders, co-occurring substance use disorders, and treatment-resistant neurological or mental health conditions. Any studies would need to go through the Federal Food and Drug Administration investigational drug approval process. Researchers would also need to be permitted by the Drug Enforcement Administration to conduct trials involving the Schedule I controlled substance. Patients participating in the studies would need to go through mental and physical health screening, and researchers would also be required to develop processes that ensure safety and compliance with adverse event reporting rules, training and licensing for therapists, policies for tracking and handling the psychedelics. You would think if it's running through the DHS program and I'm researching for your state, you'd give me those fucking people.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, there are also provisions authorizing academic institutions to collaborate in the clinical trials to bolster FDA approval prospects to develop prescription drugs based on psychedelics. Researchers would also be encouraged to collaborate with institutions in other states. Similar programs in place. If a drug is approved and developed as a result of the pilot program clinical trials, there would be a reverse sharing requirement. Under the bill as amended on the House floor, it says not less than 2.5% of net sales would go to the state through a prior committee amendment and had put that amount at 20%. Under SB 43 as amended, Louisiana would participate in a national consortium for research and drug development. If therapy does gain FDA approval, revenue tied to the intellectual property rights of that drug will go to the consortium, except for the portion specifically earmarked for Louisiana. Okay, see, now I have a problem with this. Okay, I hate to stop the article here, but wait a second here, buddy. It's my company. You're letting me come into your place, and now you want me to give you money from my company, and you want me to have you control it.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting, eh?
You can continue on. I'm getting angry.
Yeah. Last year, McMath also sponsored a resolution approved by the full chamber that called for the establishment of a task force to study and make recommendations on the potential therapeutic benefits of psychedelics for veterans. And the rest of the article just goes on more about marijuana, which I think we can skip over, but you're welcome to go ahead and finish reading that little blurbs down there if you want to on your own.
Yeah, I don't know if I like that, and it's cool. It's cool. You know, I get it. Thank you for embracing natural medicines, but now you want your government agency to control the whole program, but just not supply the product. Yeah. So now you're relying on me as an employer and a business, but now it's so damn expensive, man. And you want to control it.
That's what they did with cannabis.
Man, it's I don't thank you for embracing natural medicines. But when you go into the pocket line, yeah, right. And and I can see how, we have big colleges. Our colleges have already embraced, we already have read that some of these people have even went to the hearings to help psychedelic studies at the DEA and the FDA level, and showing that it can be done responsible.
Yeah.
So the state is already showing that, but now it's like, I don't get the whole why DHS is controlling it, why there's a high percentile of my company now paying into your state's treatment. I mean, I'm already moving my company to help you provide the medicine, and now you want more money?
Yep, that's what it's all about. It's not about us being well. It's about them making money off the backs of sick people.
Right. Now, if they embraced it like Oregon and people that, because this is a poor state. Like I myself would not be able to afford going to DHS, and I don't expect the state to pay for it, which it sounds like they're trying to get this government money to pay for your medicines and stuff. Well, how does that really much work even with food stamps? Not everybody gets what they need.
Right. Yeah.
So
it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out.
It will. And so let's go on to the next article, which is from, is it short? Because we got a break coming. Oh, it's short. Okay. Stripes.com. says VA launches clinical trials using hallucinogen to treat PTSD and alcohol addiction in veterans. And this is by Linda F. Hersey.
Yeah, so the Department of Veterans Affairs is launching a clinical trial on the potential benefits of using the hallucinogenic drug MDMA, commonly known as ecstasy, in therapeutic settings to treat post-traumatic stress disorder and alcohol addiction in veterans. The clinical trial, announced last week, will enroll 80 veterans to study the safety and efficacy and effectiveness of MDMA assisted therapy to address severe conditions that do not fully respond to standard treatments, according to the VA. The trial began enrolling participants on May 18th and is now actively recruiting, according to clinicaltrials.gov. MDMA stands for methylphenyldiazoxymethamphetamine, which is a Schedule I drug, which is currently under federal law for general use outside of medical supervised structured clinical trials. The drug stimulates the nervous system and can produce intense feelings of euphoria, according to the Drug Enforcement Administration. The announcement of the clinical trial for MDMA-assisted therapy follows an executive order by President Donald Trump in April to fast-track evaluation of certain psychedelic drugs for treatment of mental health conditions. Titled Accelerating Medical Treatment for Serious Mental Illness, the executive order cites the suicide rate among veterans as a reason for advancing studies into these alternative treatments. The rate is more than 1.5 times higher than the general adult population, according to the 2025 National Veterans Suicide Prevention Annual Report. The executive order directed the Food and Drug Administration and the Department of Health and Human Services to work with the VA and the private sector to increase clinical trial participation in psychedelic therapies. Innovative methods are needed to find long-term solutions for these Americans beyond existing prescription medications, according to the executive order. And I would agree with that.
Wow. For this study, titled MDMA Assisted Therapy for Veterans with PTSD and Alcohol Use Disorder, veterans will be recruited from the VA Providence Healthcare System, Rhode Island, and VA Connecticut Healthcare System in West Haven, Connecticut. Participants will undergo a structured multi-month therapeutic program that includes mental health counseling and medically supervised delivery of pharmaceutical-grade MDMA, according to clinicaltrials.gov. The study will compare outcomes between veterans who received MDMA-assisted therapy with those receiving the same psychotherapy but who are administered as an active placebo. Participants will be given MDMA or the placebo in a safe, controlled clinical setting, according to the VA. The VA will coordinate research and share data with the FDA. VA is currently involved in 19 other active clinical trials focused on psychedelic therapies for mental health conditions, according to the agency. VA Secretary Doug Collins says that the agency needs an all-of-the-above strategy for helping veterans with serious mental health conditions. This trial represents an important step in safety evaluation, new approaches, and innovations to treat veterans, Collins said. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the Secret of Health and Human Services, is another member of the Trump administration who is pressed for review and approval of psychedelic drugs as the mental health treatment. The FDA granted breakthrough therapy designation to several psychedelic substances, including MDMA, for the purpose of clinical evaluation, according to the VA. Breakthrough therapy designation means that a substance is part of an FDA program designed to expedite the review and development of a new drug for treating serious and life-threatening conditions. But clinical use of MDMA-assisted therapies outside of a research setting will only be considered after FDA approval is granted, the agency said. The VA is also a written statement saying that it strongly discourages self-medicating or attempting to replace other mental health treatment options with psychedelics or any other unprescribed substances. Well, if that ain't just a cover your ass.
Right.
Yeah, well, it's medication time.
That's right, folks. It's time to pay some bills, so stay tuned for a word from some of our amazing sponsors, and then we'll return with more articles Bufo has chosen, making mainstream media news.
Back in 4 minutes and 20 seconds here on Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network.
Dirty Dave, award-winning cultivator for over 4 decades. Dirty Dave, prized genetics fueled by advanced nutrients, original OG organics. Dirty Dave, award-winning products available at these fine establishments. Ask your shop to carry Dirty Dave. Contact us at dirtiesdoggies@gmail.com.
Join us for NOK Network monthly specials, 12 months a year, movie nights, spotlights on entertainment, and live on location coverage. Stay up to date about upcoming programming by subscribing to NOK Network on Rumble, YouTube, X, LinkedIn, Twitch, and Facebook. Check out our webpage at www.noknetwork.com.
Hey, hi, my name is John Mark, aka Sublimator Warrior, and I would like to welcome you to Smoke Signal in Tyendinaga.
One dab make your whole dome drip sweat. One dab make the homies all dip set.
Smoke Signals, Tyendinaga.
Smoke Signals, Tyendinaga.
Smoke Signals, Tyendinaga.
Ooey, ooey, gooey, that's a sticky dab. Sticky dab. Might just have to put this one on Instagram.
Smoke Signals,
Go
Tyendinaga.
ahead, hold it in, feel it in your wrist.
Smoke Signals, Tyendinaga.
Check us out in Tyendinaga. 55 Highway 49 in Tyndonega. It's on the res, and we're open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week.
Now we get back to the show.
And we're back for our medication session live here on Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network.
And we have another set of stories coming at you from the realm of psychedelic medicine. So let's get at it. So this next article comes out of High Times, and it's a good read. It's a good read. It kind of touches what we said after the second article. And it's Wall Street is about to steal psychedelics from the people who need them. And this is written by Rolando Garcia.
Yeah. The clinical evidence for psychedelic assisted therapy is real, and it's growing, and it matters. In the past 5 years, rigorously designed trials have shown psilocybin can produce rapid and durable reductions in depressive symptoms that conventional antidepressants often cannot match. A dose-response meta-analysis of randomized placebo-controlled trials published in the Journal of Affective Disorders confirmed short-term efficacy for major depressive disorder. A VA-funded pilot study found that 60% of military veterans with severe treatment-resistant depression met response criteria 3 weeks after a single 25 milligram dose, with 40% still in remission at 12 weeks in a population that has failed multiple prior treatments. A phase 2 trial of COMP360 psilocybin for post-traumatic stress disorder showed rapid, durable symptom improvement lasting up to 12 weeks with no serious adverse events, offering a potential breakthrough in a field with just 2 FDA-approved medications that persistently high dropout rates from trauma-focused therapy. In Germany, the first compassionate use psilocybin therapy program launched in 2026 for patients with treatment-resistant depression. In the Czech Republic, lawmakers approved therapeutic psilocybin use for severe depression. In New Zealand, the first authorized prescriber began administering clinical doses in 2025. For people living with conditions that resist everything else in the pharmacological toolkit, psychedelic therapy represents a genuine novel mechanism, one that works through neuroplasticity through the disruption of rigid default mode network patterns, through the creation of psychological flexibility that allows patients to process trauma and break free of depressive loops. The need for a legal, regulated access to these therapies is not speculative. It is clinical, it's urgent, and it is precisely because these substances have so much potential that the financial ecosystem building up around them demands scrutiny, not to undermine the science, but to protect it. The gap between science and spreadsheets. I'm curious about how this market could actually get, how big this market could actually get. I pulled market size estimates from 10 research firms as early as 2026. For the base year alone, the psychedelic therapeutic market is supposedly worth right now estimated range from $603 million. And then there's some, I don't know what all that data means. Fact MR to 4.51 billion data bridge for the US alone. That's a sevenfold disagreement about the present. The forward projections fan wider, 4.2 billion by 2030, and that's Grand View Research. 9.6 billion by 2032, Coherent Market Insight, 11 billion by 2034, predecessant research, 12.3 billion by 2035. Research Nester, a 2021 report from DataBridge projected 6.886 billion by 2027, and we're in 2026. That number exists nowhere. That number exists nowhere outside of PDF. Meanwhile, the only functioning regulated psilocybin market in the U.S., Oregon's psilocybin service program, launched in 2023, has generated approximately 1.7 million in cumulative revenue over 3 years, while roughly a third of its licensed service centers have closed. The state had to tap 3.1 million from its general fund to keep the regulatory program operational. Well, and again, that could be because they're charging way too much for services.
Mm-hmm.
People can't afford that. And we know it doesn't cost that to treat somebody with mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
It's the overhead, all the regulations, the, paid therapists who have to be paid whether someone's there or not, I would assume. So there's a lot of things going on there that don't need to happen the way they're happening, and we could bring low-cost treatment to everyone.
I want to hold the psilocybin sector's financial profile against a drug that worked commercially, clinically at a global scale, and see what it teaches us about what separates market speculative behavior from real life value. Nova Nordisk semaglutide, the molecule behind Ozempic and Wegovy, is the most successful pharmaceutical story of past decade. FDA approval for diabetes came in 2017 after extensive phase 3 trials. Approval for obesity followed in 2021. Revenue went from 21.3 billion in 2021 to 46 billion in 2025. The semaglutide franchise also generated roughly for 33 billion last year. Net profits in 2024 were approximately 14.6 billion. The company is spending 9.5 billion this decade on new production capacity in single Danish town. This is what a pharmaceutical blockbuster looks when the science is proven, the trials complete the FDA approval. The product. 38 million Americans are in the patient base. The reimbursement infrastructure exists, and the revenue is real. Even with all that, Nova Nordisk's stock dropped more than 55% from its 52-week high in the past year. Competition from LA Lilly, pressure from the government negotiations, and market saturation among patients who can afford $1,000 a month. Drugs inflated even this juggernaut. The company lowered its guidance 4 times in 2025. If the most successfully drugged franchise of the 2020s can lose half its market value despite 49 billion in annual revenue, what exactly is supporting the valuation of psychedelic companies that never generated $1 of commercial revenue? The valuation question. Compass Pathways market approximately 560 million, trailing revenue 0. Net loss nearly 288 million. Operating expenses of approximately 157 million per year. Every analyst focused 0 revenue for 2026. MindMed market cap 1.52 billion, revenue 0. Quarterly net loss 42.7 million. Cash runway into 2027 only if current burn rates hold. ATAI Life Sciences merged with Beckley Psytech after a 40% single-day crash when a trial failed. Cybin, now Helix, secured 500 million in financing but has no product anywhere near market. In October 2025, AbbVie completed its acquisition of Gigamash Pharmaceuticals, Brett Sicolin, for up to $1.2 billion. Woo, shit. Bresticolin is a synthetic analog designed to retain psilocybin's antidepressant mechanism while shortening and softening the psychedelic experience. It is by design a pill that pharma can route through conventional channels. No facilitators, no service centers, no therapeutic relationship architecture. Nova Nordisk's success was built on a molecule backed by a decade of trials, regulatory approval, massive patient populations, and reimbursement infrastructure. Abiva's bet follows the same logic, but has nothing to do with psilocybin as the therapeutic community understands it. The question for the movement is whether the path to legalization and access runs through the kinds of deal or gets swallowed by it. Compare this cannabis at peak hype to rise to 2018 market cap $13.4 billion on $43 billion in revenue was absurd, but there were revenues. A product was being sold to real people. Too afraid of letting ancestral therapies lose, politicians, lobbyists, and regulators are making psilocybin climb the pharmaceutical Mount Everest when they should be allowing several producers to actually work with the substance in controlled humanized environment. But what's the point of creating constraints necessary to form a unicorn that can bypass regulations with science if it's only going to make millions of investors lose money? This looks like a trade for few, losses for many. I like unicorns.
Yeah. The cannabis movement taught us what happens to when the people who write the rules are the people who profit from them. Patients get priced out, small operators get crushed, community of color absorbs the cost of prohibition, and none of the benefits of legalization, and the plant's therapeutic credibility gets buried. In psychedelics, there's an additional layer. Mazatec communities in Mexico have publicly rejected commercialization of their ceremonial practices. Peru declared ayahuasca knowledge a cultural patrimony in 2008. Brazil restricted legitimate use to religious contexts. Meanwhile, corporate firms, while firms file patents on compounds derived from these very traditions, strategies that legal scholars have flagged as potentially covering practices in use for centuries. If legalization advances without benefit sharing framework, without indigenous consent structure, and without market architectures that prevent the kind of consolidation that gutted cannabis, the scientists promise will be captured before patients ever see it. There is not an anti-psychedelic position. It's in the most pro-psychedelic position that is. And so just a little note on Ozempic and the fact that, even they're struggling in the psychedelic realm. It's because they want the money based on these psychedelics. And they're actually being sued. Ozempic makers are being sued because of all the horrific side effects with their medications. So I wouldn't trust anything coming from a pharmaceutical company in the realm of psychedelics, because they're just going to bastardize it and make it probably unsafe. Just saying. I just know a little bit about that and what's happening behind the scenes. So, and they don't mention that in this article, that pharmaceutical company is being sued because of the things that drug has caused. I'd be more apt to try something coming from Atai Life or MindMed or one of those companies that aren't pharmaceutical backed. Just my personal preference.
Yeah, and I mean, they kept on going about the three substances deserve the Comp 360 trials and facilitators about Lean Clinic, 900 a session, clearing 10,000 a month, doing meaningful work that is real. So it's a great article, but it points out the whole money factor into it about, of natural medicines. And this is going to be an individual argument all the way, because for years, legislation have been wanting to control the natural medicines thing. People have been wanting, is it our rights to take them? I mean, in Canada, every country, a constituent has that right to argument about what's good for his body and how much control does the government have for you to get that.
Exactly. And you know that it's not going to be a one size fits all solution, like here's a pill and this works for everyone. I really believe these substances are very individual and based on that individual's makeup and trauma responses and all of those things. So them messing around with this in the name of money to make us well is just in the name of money. It has nothing to do with us actually getting well from these substances. And they want to take them from the traditional communities and make money off of them. And I don't think that that's right either. That's like intellectual property that they're stealing to make money on.
Right. So, that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you for joining us here on Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network, and for tuning in to our video podcast on NOK Network's Rumble and YouTube pages, as well as our social media sites.
That's right, folks. We hope you've enjoyed your update today of mainstream news and psychedelic advancements from around the globe.
Many thanks to our sponsors and to my joint hosts, Tara Simpson and Bufal Various, for choosing the stories for us, and to you, our listeners, for joining each week on Psychedelic Tuesday. Let's hear from Ted Ringer again from Kirkland Lake on our way down.
I'm looking at myself, reflections of my mind. It's just the kind of day to leave myself behind. So gently swaying through the fairyland of love. If you'll just come with me, you'll see the beauty of